We're live.
So I go by, but Levinson might call if he has time. Yes, call. So
welcome in this Sunday morning, and folks, there is not much joy in Mudville as the Baltimore Ravens sit at 1-4, face two very, very tough West Coast games. Their history on the West Coast is not that great. Certainly this year, going to San Francisco today at 4:25, and then next Monday night having to go to Arizona. We'll start off with my two usual co-hosts, Carl Saiontz and Donald Saiontz, and let's look back at the Cleveland game. Or Donald, I'll let you talk about whatever you want to start the show. Go ahead.
well, the good news is
I want to hear this.
we have been in every single one of these games, and in fact had the lead in I think every one of these games at a time when you normally would win the game. There just seems to be some problem when they get into the fourth quarter where they can't hold the lead. Now, it looks like it's still more of the problem that was left over from last year with the lack of a good defensive backfield, because in the fourth quarter is when they go to town on against a weak defensive background. And we just haven't been able to solve that problem. And also, we seem to have a problem of our own in the red zone. We get into the red zone, and we walk out with 3 points instead of 7.
Especially in the fourth quarter.
Multiply that by 3 times a game, and that's 12 points. We've been losing games by just a couple points. So they just have to learn how to conquer the red zone. I think I talked last week about the fact that Arizona 9 straight times got in from the red zone with a touchdown every single time. 9 out of 9. Not even a field goal was needed. They made touchdowns. You can't win unless you can make 7 points come up. You can't keep giving away 4 points every time you get in the red zone.
Carl, your turn.
Yeah, well, I just cannot blame the offense for anything.
30 points, I can't either.
And it's been happening all year. And it's been happening for 3 years. It is frustrating, and I'm Mr. Optimist. It's unexplainable. You know, the talent seems to be there. I thought they made a couple of good pickups in the offseason for the defensive backfield, but Kyle Arrington, you know, I love Will Hill, but it's just not coming
You can't
together.
love anybody in that secondary.
It's not coming
It's
together.
a disaster. And
It's not coming together.
it's beginning to look like the Orioles in left field. All right, that they bring in one more guy or 2 more guys every week who are the bottom of the heap, and you're trying to put a guy out there, put a name on his uniform, and thinking he's going to perform.
Right.
Well, it's not happening, and that's why I picked the Browns last week, because the defense cannot stop anybody in the fourth quarter.
I didn't expect to see that happen.
And this almost goes back to the Super Bowl game or the Super Bowl year in the 5. The Ravens lost 4 out of the last 5 games that year.
That's right.
And then Super Bowl, they allowed San Fran to come back. And since then, teams have just been carving us up in the fourth quarter.
Well, the difference with Ray Lewis wasn't on the field at the end of that year
Right.
until the playoffs.
Right.
He came in and he was able to will them as he did for a decade.
Is Suggs' absence that
Huge,
big?
huge.
The lack of pressure, then the fact that they lost Dumerville sometime during that game
That didn't help.
left there with no pressure on the quarterback. Otherwise, he had a free rein back there.
Well, it's a big. I don't have the results as to who's playing today. Hasn't been announced, but rumors Steve Smith might play. All right, Forsett, we're not sure.
Well, he has questions about everybody. Young,
Well, we know Taliaferro. I don't know if you know,
Taliaferro's IR.
put on IR. So I mean,
That's
Is Webb playing? I mean, you know,
I don't know. I don't know who's playing, but
I think the lack of a big power back has really come home to roost for this team. They can't get that sure thing on first down or third down and 1 or 2. They always got to try to pass the ball. They're afraid to run the ball. They can't pull their way into the end zone. And I think they lack in the red zone, seem to lack some imagination as to different ways you can go that last 5 yards. It seems like it would be the easiest thing in the world to score a 5-yard pass on a pitch out or a fake run and handoff. It just seems they can't do it.
is Dean Pease on the hot seat?
he has to be.
Right? Even though you really can't say, well, this guy's hurt, and Suggs is out for the year. But you got to be able to scheme better than that. Yeah, you can't. Teams just make us look silly in the fourth quarter.
You got to figure something out. He has NFL players out there. He's got some Pro Bowl players out there. He's got to figure out a way to get the best out of them, and he does not seem to be doing that right now at all.
Wait a minute, Donald. Somebody said, well, he was successful at New England as a defensive coordinator, and then somebody said, sure, he had the plays from the garbage can. He knew what was going on.
He had it taped.
Yeah. Go ahead, Donald.
I had a point to that. You started talking.
I'm sorry.
I'll come back to it again.
All right. So anyway, here we go to San Francisco today. Another team that's in turmoil. Kaepernick looked good last week. All right. And listen, you know, Donald, I know, Carl, two guys on that team are just dying for this game. One of whom is Anquan Bolden, and the other one is my man, Torrey Smith.
Is Jake Arrieta starting that game?
All right.
If you want to know the truth,
Yes.
you just named the two reasons why we were 1-4. We had those two players on our team, hadn't let them go. We would be 4-1 instead of 1-4.
We could be. I'm not going to say we would be. We could be.
Torrey would have made a big difference.
Torrey would have made a huge difference. There's no doubt about it.
How about Antoine?
Well, he's gone. If he's been gone, he's been gone.
If you have Smith and
You've got
Antoine
Steve
on the
Smith.
same team, my goodness, I mean, they could control the clock and go down the field anytime they wanted.
But can you imagine the heat that the team's going to take if Bolden and Torrey Smith have big games? And you know that Torrey Smith, you know,
He's done very little this year.
okay, but you know what? Look at the
But-
secondary he's facing this week.
Yeah.
Who's going to guard him?
No question.
Again, we've had the same problem that we let Torrey go, we let Antoine go, and we didn't bring anybody in. We didn't bring in one.
Well,
So they
Steve
did.
Smith,
They brought in Perryman,
We brought in Steve Smith, I take that back.
and they drafted Perryman in the first round. He hasn't played.
I understand, but when you saw that he wasn't going to play for the year, you go out and you find somebody with speed. Speed kills. I mean, it just dominates sports at speed.
Hey.
We have the slowest set of, I would bet, we have the slowest set of receivers in the National Football League.
Well, you take a look at the receivers. Kamar Aiken's been okay. You can't criticize him. But then you take a look at Marlon Brown. It's almost ridiculous why he's on the field at this point. And who'd they pick up? Gibbons from St. Louis. You pick up the fourth receiver from a team or the fifth receiver. And you know what he plays like? The fifth receiver.
Right. Plays
All
like
right.
Orioles left fielder.
Yeah, same thing. You pick up a guy who's a career 210 hitter, and if he hits 210, you're getting what you expect.
But the bottom line is, they've had leads late in these games.
It's been defense. I
It's
agree.
been defense.
I mean, actually, if you look around, I'm noticing almost every NFL game is getting down to the last 2 minutes. Whoever has the ball last is going to win the game. I've never seen such close games. You just never, you don't see very many blowouts, and it always gets down in the fourth quarter. Somebody's going to get the ball last, and they usually win.
Well, you look at our division, and now it's even worse. I mean, when you have, we're in last place right
We
now.
are in last
We're
place.
in last place.
Cleveland's 2-3.
I mean, Cincinnati's 5-0, 24-7. They're losing to Seattle. They come back and win the game.
They seem to be putting all that talent together this year.
Which brings us to clock management. It seems like these other teams, when they go down the field in the fourth quarter, they use every second of the clock they can and leave the Ravens with no time left.
Well, 30. Look, here's the bottom line: you win the toss, and you go backwards. All right. Now, what's with all these penalties? It's insane how many penalties the Ravens are committing. How about the one, I forgot who it was, absolutely hit somebody totally out of bounds?
Yeah.
Wait, what's going on, Carl?
Well, Babin has the only stats that Babin had before
He's
he got
gone.
cut
He's gone.
were penalties. He had no tackles.
Vinny Serrano said that if they keep Jason Babin after what he did with the encroachment calls,
Hideous.
he'll faint.
They scored a touchdown 2 plays later, I think. Cleveland.
Yeah, but the frustrating thing is usually you'd say, well, now maybe we'll experiment with some other players, some younger players, put them in the line and see what they can do. We don't have any. We have nobody sitting on the bench right now who we're just dying to see what they can do. And we can't, the guys we have aren't performing.
Well, to be fair, any team in the NFL that has the rash of injuries, hate to use excuses, but the rash of injuries they've suffered, it's just going to kill any team.
Carl,
it truly
every
is.
team has injuries.
Every team has them.
I mean, look at Dallas.
But you combine that with the way they had to handcuff themselves with the dead money They had dead money from Rice and dead money from Nada. It's about $16 million. It's about 10% or 50% of their cap, I guess.
Well,
It's a huge amount. It's a huge amount of money.
what got
It's all about depth.
what
And
got
this explains it.
what got me against the Browns was the way our linebackers were just decimated. All right, you're talking about this tight end. They made him
They
look.
couldn't cover
They
anything.
made him look like John Mackey. It was ridiculous. He had.
That guy's got hands on his feet, evidently, too.
Well, it was a great. You know what?
To lose
Did you know that he caught the ball? Suggs made
I
the
had no
exact
idea
same
he caught-
play.
I had no idea he caught that. This is better than Suggs. This was the feet.
This was a
Suggs
touchdown.
was the knees.
Right. This was unbelievable.
Yeah, it
but it was legit.
It was
Without
legit.
question.
It's the right call.
Yeah, it was
But
definitely the right call.
something. But obviously, the breaks are not going your way when that happens.
Well, look, here's something else that nobody's talking too much about. We all love him. He's a great character. He's a great, he's a great kid. Justin Tucker has missed 2 field goals at home.
Yes, he has.
And that field goal turned into 6 points.
Both games.
All right, now
Hurt.
it hurt. In other
Yeah.
words, it gave them the ball
Huge.
at the
Huge.
40-yard
And
line
this-
or something
and
like
they
that.
got their own field goal.
And they got their own field goal. So instead of being up 17-3, they're up 14-6.
Yep.
That's 2 different games.
No doubt.
And it's 2 field goals he missed. Look, he hit one in Pittsburgh that was a miracle. And look, Carl, you look back at it, Donald, the way the Ravens won that Pittsburgh game, they could just as easily be 0-5.
I think it gets, one reason we're going to field goals, we just can't seem to get down the end of the field and then get it in the end zone. And we don't seem to have any imagination, any kind of trick plays, anything that's deceptive. Joe hands off. He gets the first down on his 7-yard line, I think, whatever, in the first quarter. And it looks like we're going to take a 7-0 lead. He hands off, runs 1 yard, hands off again, runs 1 more yard, misses a pass, and we kick. And we
scored a
To make
touchdown.
it worse, we missed the
Well, that
field
one
goal.
we did.
Well, that one,
And then we missed the field goal.
That was later.
right, that was later. But
When
Joe had the naked bootleg. That was a great call by him.
that's exactly what I'm saying. When they do that, they score. I don't know why they don't do it all the time.
Do you know that Carl, that the naked bootleg play, the quarterback does not tell the team?
Right.
In other words,
That's how you sell a fake, right?
right, that's really a fake because the
Yeah.
whole team's fake now. And
That's selling it.
you or me could have scored that touchdown.
Right.
It was so wide open.
But football is deception. If you can't on offense have the other people thinking we're going left or we're really going right or we're going over the top or instead of around the corner, that's how you win games. You got to fake. They got to be a little bit worried about what you're going to do.
Well, there's also something to be said about continuity, and Joe's learning these new receivers. And so when you come back and you're scrambling a little bit and you're looking for the busted play to make a play out of it, the guys that are successful are the ones that have been together for a little while. And he doesn't have that right now.
Before it just came in.
Go ahead.
We don't have a power runner. I don't care what anybody says. We used to have these 240-pound power runners get down to the inside the 10-yard line. They get 3 yards, get 2 yards, and then they get to the 1 and they go in the end zone. We have nobody who can knock the door down at the end zone and get that last yard or 2. So we end up throwing passes on like 3rd down every time we're in.
We almost have to use deception to get in because there's no other way to get in.
We don't have a power guy, could make his way in.
How about Joe with his sneak? That was the best sneak he ever did in his life.
Yeah.
All right. He lunged out. It was a Brady sneak. He must have studied the Brady film.
That's what they should be doing.
Speaking of Brady, that game must be talked about because that is the revenge game of all games. New England, Sunday night against Indianapolis. We'll get to that.
You think they might run the score up a little bit?
I said yesterday on Sports Maven that if they're up by 35,
they'll go for 42.
they'll go for 40. If they're up by 50, they'll go for 57.
No doubt.
The aggravation that they caused Brady, all right,
No doubt.
more so than New England, the way they cheapened the Super Bowl victory for them will not be forgotten. All right,
And the Colts defense is just as bad as ours.
well, I don't know how anybody could be worse than the Ravens' passing defense. I don't know where they rank. I think it's 26th.
What's the worst in franchise history? And I know 96 was pretty bad.
457 yards, and the quarterback
But they were
was.
playing Montana, weren't they?
Listen, right? My time about Otto Graham and shit. That's
Right.
the only Cleveland Brown that should have thrown for 457 yards against any team. But look, I said it last week. Carl, I have to say, you told me I was out of my
I
mind.
know.
Ravens were going to win by
If you
17.
had asked me after 3 quarters, I was right.
Here's the bottom line, all right? You are what your record says you are. Now, here's the craziest thing in the world. The Ravens go to San Francisco, 2.5-point favorites. How could that be? How could they be favored?
I have been watching the Niners. I know they're a disaster, but so are we. So I don't know.
I mean,
Well, I think the theory is
they've been blown out a few times, and we haven't.
we have it. That's true.
they just lost to Pittsburgh who doesn't have a quarterback, okay?
No,
No, they lost to the Giants.
The Steelers had Big Ben when they played the Niners. They
Yeah.
blew them out.
Right.
Okay.
The Niners have been blown out a couple of times.
Niners played good last Sunday.
They did.
They played good.
Against the Giants, they played
Right.
very good.
And Anquan was back in his full force, 7 catches, over 100 yards, and who knows? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's an all-time stadium out there. Again, one side of the stadium is all skyboxes, but Wayne Viner was telling me yesterday that they've been having the biggest amount of no-shows, the biggest amount of unsold tickets on StubHub, 6,000 tickets on StubHub unsold.
Wow.
And this, of course, they're not the San Francisco 49ers. This team
San Jose.
is San Jose. This is an absolute. I went to the the Maryland game against Stanford, and it took an hour and 10 minutes to get there, and there was nobody there.
That is the Apple/Google 49ers.
Right. Of course, they have 300 skyboxes there.
Right.
All right. One side of the stadium is 100% skybox. So,
It's made of silicon, isn't it?
oh yeah, but it's where the money's at. It's where everything's at. So anyway, we'll talk about who's going to win that game later on. But right now, let's go out to our first break. Before we do, I'll tell you about Steve Krulovitz, 410-560-0066. He's got his clinics running at Orchards indoors, and he's still outdoors at Gilman because the weather's been so good. Steve, of course, a member of the ATP and the USPTA, one of the greatest players ever to come out of Baltimore. No membership or guest fees, ages 3 to 18. My granddaughter's going to start with him this summer, and Steve's a great guy. All the kids have a lot of fun, and also he's available for private lessons. Steve's a great guy. That's 410-560-0066. This is Bruce Posner.
I think he's the reigning icon of tennis in Baltimore.
Without question. Him, and certainly for the man, and Pam Shriver for the women. We'll be back in a few minutes here on CBS Sports Radio, 1300. You're listening to Saiontz and Kirk present In the Nest.